Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for showing up for Context is Key. How's everyone's afternoon been so far? Session's been good? Yeah? I can see some thumbs up. It's always good to see that. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Rob. I'm part of the sales engineering team at Jamf and I have been for the last few years. Beside that, I've been using Jamf products for a little over 10 years and Apple products for a little over 20. Saying that makes me feel a little bit old, so let's move on. What we're going to cover today, so context is key. What's the session about really? It's about security remediations, how we can do them, but how we can actually make them a bit more effective, how we can make them a bit more user-friendly as well. In terms of the problem, we're going to look at a couple of different ways people are doing this now, how that kind of works, but maybe we can change that and go for a couple of examples. And we're going to kind of use some APIs to kind of try and automate some of that, give everyone the opportunity to get some time back by not having to manually do things. Automation is where we should strive to be. So what is an API? If some of you have kind of used an API before, bear with me a little bit during that section. At some point in the past, you probably had to ask the same question, what is an API? And then we'll come to addressing the problem. So we're kind of bringing everything we've done so far together, putting an API twist on it, and seeing how we can really see why context is key and how we can do some really cool stuff for both us and the users. Sound good? Amazing. So the problem, what are we going to kind of look at? Okay. Firstly, who here is using Jamf Pro? Most people. Okay. What about Jamf Protect for Mac? I saw a little wiggly hand. A definite one down here. Okay, a few people. Okay. The reason why we kind of want to talk about these, and it's actually going to be about using the two together, is about behavioral analytics. Okay, has anyone heard about analytics in Jamf Protect before? Yeah? A little bit? Okay. For those of you who don't know, basically it's, apart from a normal threat prevention kind of side of Jamf Protect, we can look at behaviors that are happening on a device, be that a screenshot being taken or a login hook being created on a device. Things that aren't necessarily inherently bad. They can be used for bad purposes, but they're not inherently bad. You might want to look at them in your estate and kind of do stuff around that. So we can kind of get alerting based on these actions, on these behaviors being detected. And we can actually do remediations via Jamf Pro, and that's something quite a lot of people don't realize, is we can use Jamf Pro to automatically remediate as soon as one of these behaviors is detected. Think of it a little bit like a home security system. You pass the motion sensor, the light comes on. We don't turn the light on unless the sensor's tripped, kind of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is actually what we're going to try and work out today. We're going to go through and we're going to build it, see it kind of run, and then we'll kind of look at why we might want to change this. So the actions we're going to look at, hey, a screenshot's been taken, easy one to kind of understand, but we'll look at some other examples as well. And the journey is we want to get from screenshot taken to Jamf Pro's remediated this. The question is, what do we do in the middle? Well, how do we get from A to B, right? So the first thing we can do is we can actually go into Jamf Protect, and if I play this through, we've got these analytics, the behavioral analytics. And if we go in, if you'll play, here we go. No. Hopefully this is going to play through. Bear with me just a second, guys. Should be coming any moment. That's unfortunate. Right. I'll talk you through it very quickly for this particular one. So what we would do is we would go into Jamf Protect and we'd go into our analytics. We've got a little tab up there that says all analytics. And there's an option where we can then look at all of the different detections that we're doing. And one of those being a screenshot, we could open that up and there's an edit button. Now there's two things you can do when you edit an analytic that's built into Jamf Protect. One is change the severity, i.e. how big of a problem is this? Is it informational, low, medium, or high? And the one other option is, hey, we can tell Jamf Protect to add this to a Jamf Pro smart group. So anytime this behavior is detected, I want to be added to that Jamf Pro smart group. Okay, and that's the key thing here. That's how we're kind of doing that detection and then trying to actually get the home security system to actually kick in. All right. So the way this actually works in Jamf Pro is via an extension attribute. Everyone familiar with extension attributes? A little bit? Okay. None of these playing. Okay, I think we're good to go. Sorry about that. Looked like for some reason none of the videos were going to play. And then I know you said act it out. I'm not that good an actor. Okay, so we have gone back just a tiny bit. But hopefully this will make sense now. So here we go. So just to show you, thanks. So this was us going into the analytics. And if we search for screenshot, because that's the example we're going to talk through to start with, find the screenshot. This is what I was acting out before. And we say edit. Like I said, there's the two different things we can do. We can change the severity or add to a smart group. So I'm going to put in protect-screenshot. That's the name of the smart group I'm going to be using today. And then we click save. All right. Now what I was saying was this all functions via an extension attribute in Jamf Pro. So what we're going to do is create that in Jamf Pro now. So we'll pop into Jamf Pro. We're going to go into settings, computer management. And when we scroll to the bottom, there'll be an option for extension attributes. Now, you don't have to create this yourself. There's a way you can do this really easily. You've got new from template. Now, excuse me, there are over 200 templates. So I've been cheeky and typed in protect to filter it down. But you'll see one that says Jamf Protect -smart groups. Okay. Alternatively, you can, well, optionally, you can change where you're displaying this information. We're basically just putting an extra bit of inventory information into every computer record. I've changed mine. You don't have to, as to where that's stored within the record. Okay. So this is the journey we're trying to make. Let's expand it a little bit. So we take a screenshot. Jamf Protect has detected that screenshot's been taken. And we're going to update an extension attribute in Jamf Pro. Okay? What's next? Well, we can't use an extension attribute for a policy in Jamf Pro how it is right now. So we're going to have to create a smart group to actually look and see whether or not we're meant to be in that group right now or not. So if we go into computers, and we'll go down to smart computer groups, and we'll create a new one. We'll give it a name, some way of identifying what we're doing here today, for example. So protect screenshot detected. And then what we need to do is look at our criteria and add some criterion to add it into our smart group. Now, we've never used this extension attribute. We literally just created it. So we're going to have to go into advanced criteria. Yeah, again, a lot of criteria. So I'm searching for it, and I found Jamf Protect -smart groups. And then I'm saying, hey, my criteria is you need to match this string, protect -screenshot. That's how we know a screenshot was detected, right? Everyone with me? Great. So we've seen this already. Now we've kind of got a bit of a condition. Hey, if we met the criteria we're supposed to be in the smart group, we get added to it. Otherwise, to be honest, we never did a detection, so you never fall into the group. So we've kind of ended the process. The process never really started at the bottom. So now we need a policy to actually do our remediation, to actually do whatever we're going to do to tidy up the fact that someone's taken a screenshot. You know, in our situation, we're kind of acting out the fact that screenshots aren't allowed in our environment. That might be for, you know, a compliance reason. It might be for data loss prevention. Doesn't really matter, but we need to get rid of that screenshot that someone took because it's just not allowed. So we're actually going to use a script. But before we create the policy, we need to create that script. Otherwise, we can't attach it. Well, we can attach it later, I should say, but it's better if we've got it there to start with. So let's create the script. So if we go into settings, computer management and scripts, and we can create a script in here really quickly and easily. So new, give it a name, some way of identifying it, like you normally would. Screenshot remediation. And then we can start to actually create our script. So I'm using Bash in this example, but depending on your environment, what languages you use, you might do it differently. It's just an easy example for everyone to see. And we're going to do a remove command. So remove anything from users, $3, desktop, and then anything that matches screenshot and asterisk. Asterisk being a wildcard, so screenshot, whatever follows it, is what we're targeting. Okay? And that's our script. Out of interest, does anyone know why I've used $3 in my script? Don't worry if you don't know. It's not a quiz. No?
Variable to catch the local username.
Yes.
To be in the right folder.
So $3 is the local username of the person logged in that's captured by the Jamf binary. So when you run a script via Jamf Pro, parameters 1, 2, and 3, so $1, 2, and 3, are automatically filled in by Jamf Pro. So $1 being the mount point of the computer, I think $2, if I remember correctly, is the computer name, and $3 is the user. So what we're actually doing there is being a little bit dynamic to start with and going, hey, remove anything from users, whoever the logged in user is, / desktop, screenshot, whatever, year, month, date, for example. All right? So that might be a useful one for you to use in other scripts and things like that as well. Cool, we've got our script ready. Now we can do the policy. So if we go in and create our policy, there's a few different things we're going to put in this policy today as well. But let's create it, give it a name. We'll give it the same name as the script, screenshot remediation, really easily identifiable. And now we're going to do our triggers. So we're actually going to do a custom trigger. So this is what Jamf Protect calls. When it asks for remediation to happen, it calls Jamf Pro with a custom trigger, protect. Okay, so that's what we're popping in. And we're going to change the execution frequency to ongoing. We don't want this to be a one-time remediation, i.e. we can only ever run it once on a device. Every time a screenshot's taken, we want this to be able to run, so we need it to be ongoing. We're then going to attach our script. And lastly, we're going to add a maintenance payload as well. Okay, because what we want at the end of this is an inventory update. All right, and I'll talk a little bit more about that afterwards. Scope. We know what our scope is. We created a group for it. We don't want this to apply to all devices, just the ones that are in the group that Protect put us in. All right? So we'll add that group in and save our policy. We're ready to go. Okay? So we're almost there. Almost created the workflow. So now we've got Jamf Protect calls that Protect policy, that custom trigger I was talking about. And then the script runs, which deletes the screenshots from the desktop, right? I actually left something out. How do we know to fall out that smart group at the end of the process? How did it get in there to start with? How do we stop the remediation happening once we've actually done it? Well, the answer is actually in the extension attribute that we created before. We didn't actually see the script before, but if we go into it now, it's looking at a path on the file system. It's looking at library, application support, Jamf Protect groups for where things are getting added. Basically, when Jamf Protect says, I'm going to add you into a smart group, it writes a file into that directory. And the extension attribute, when it runs, sees the names of the files in there and says, you should be in a group called this. And Jamf Pro puts you into the smart group. Okay? So we need to actually remove that file at the end of our remediation so we're no longer in that group anymore. All right? For the sake of clarity, this is kind of what the file path looks like and where that file would be. So we've got Macintosh HD, we've got a few different directories, but we'd be in library, application support, Jamf Protect, and there's a few subfolders in there. We've got DB, that's our quarantine location as well in there. We've got groups. And so when we add it into that Jamf Pro group, we're actually writing a blank file into that group's directory with the name that you created. It's just a blank file in there. So that's what we need to remove. So we just need to amend our script really, really quickly. So we're just going to go into our script, edit it, and add an additional remove command in. So we'll pop in there, add a remove command in for library, application support, Jamf Protect groups, and the name that we gave our groups, in this case, protect-screenshot. All right? Done. So we have actually finished our process now. I know we finished a second ago, but we were missing that. So now when the script runs, it deletes the screenshots, and it deletes that smart group file that we needed, okay? Well, let's actually see this in action. Let's imagine We've just set this up. Hey, the users are out there already. They've already got screenshots on their desktop. What's it going to look like? So if we deployed it now, we took a screenshot, really imaginative, just one other doc, but we've got a screenshot taken now. In the background, Jamf Protect's already kicked in and gone, right, the screenshot's been detected. I need to add you to that smart group. And it's actually doing what we call a BG recon, a background recon hidden in the background. So that's telling Jamf Pro to update the extension attribute, which then falls into the group, and our policy is now run. And we can see we got rid of all of the screenshots from the desktop. Job done, right? Woo, job done. Yes and no. It worked. It's a bit crude, right? We got rid of everything. What if these were screenshots that weren't taken on this device and I copied on? Maybe I was building out a presentation like this, for example. We've got rid of everything. Okay. What about if the user was to have things? Well, we're remediating right now based on the desktop, right? What about if the user was to change the location their screenshots went to? It's not going to work, is it? We can add more file paths into the script. That's not a problem. We can always add more because we've got the desktop already. What about if we added documents? Because that might be a place they're putting them, or user shared. We can keep on going. That kind of solves it. But what about if the user changes the file format or the file naming convention? What if it's no longer screenshot, year, month, day? We were looking for screenshot and then whatever. What if they change it? It's broken again, right? I mean, we can probably solve that as well. Getting a bit laborious, but we could maybe, I don't know, use our script to then go through all the files that are on the desktop, look at the metadata. Is it a screenshot file? Yeah, delete it. Do that the same for all the other paths that we're trying to look at and check for. But it's still not solved the user problem of we've got rid of everything. Still not a great user experience, is it? Okay. What about if we flip it and change the scenario? It's not a screenshot anymore. What about if it was a launch agent or a launch daemon that was detected and we were using this same remediation workflow? Would that work? No. If we deleted launch agents from a device, we're probably going to break some apps. If we delete all the launch daemons on a device, we're probably going to break the OS. In fairness, secure device. Not a great user experience. Also, IT probably aren't going to be particularly happy with the tickets they're going to get. I've been there. Okay, so can we do better? Yeah, we can do better. Should we do better, though? Yeah, if we've got the ability to do better, we should always try to do better. If we can be more effective and have better remediations, one, we're going to be more secure. We're automating a lot of it, right? So it's going to give us more time back to do the other things that we need to do. But ultimately, we're also going to give a better user experience. Yet again, knock-on effect. We get time back. They're happier. Win-win, right? Well, how do we get better? How do we do this? We need more context. Here's a hint. It was in the session tile. But, how do we do this? It's all well and good knowing a screenshot was taken, but what's really going to kick it into gear for us is the context of this is the screenshot that was taken, or that's the launch agent that was created on the device. Because then I know exactly which one I'm targeting, right? And that's where the APIs come in. We can get that information from the Jamf Protect macOS Security Portals API, which kind of leads us nicely into what is an API. Has anyone here used APIs before? Yeah? A couple of people. That's okay. I said at the start, I'm not expecting everyone to know what an API is. So we'll go through a little bit about what an API is, why you might want to use them, and actually we're going to go through a little bit about how we're going to use them as well. And we might see some differences for those of you who do use APIs already as well. So for those of you who haven't used it before, an API, or application programming interface, is effectively a set of routines or kind of protocols or procedures that applications use, right? And it's often, in a lot of cases, web applications, and they might be talking between each other. An example of that might be, if you think of Jamf Pro, talking off to Apple Business Manager directly itself, saying, hey, what serial numbers should be assigned to this server? That's an example of two different APIs talking to each other and feeding information back. But at the same time, we can also use the APIs ourselves, either to run commands or scripts and pull information we might want as well, okay? And so those kind of actions or those repeatable protocols or procedures can pretty much be scripted, all right, to create automations. Like I said, giving us the time back we need to, but also a very repeatable, very consistent approach to what we're doing. One of the things to note, though, is that the API is not separate. It's not a separate application. It's not standalone in most cases. So if we were looking at this, for example, being, say, the Jamf Protect GUI, we might have the API alongside it doing some actions. But they're all together. It's one application. They're not separate entities, okay? If we thought of this a little bit like you were out for dinner last night, maybe, and you're ordering food, you're in the GUI. You're ordering something. The API is in the background making it for you, bringing and producing that food, okay? They're all part of the same restaurant. They're not separate things, okay? So that's a little bit of an idea of what an API is, but how do we interact with it and what can we do with it, okay? GraphQL. Why am I talking about GraphQL? We're talking about APIs. GraphQL is a type of structure of an API. There's different kinds. And it's slightly different to what you might have used before. So this is the type of structure that's used by the macOS Security Portals API. If you've used Jamf Pro's API before, that's a RESTful API, and it's a little bit different in terms of its structure and how it responds. Okay, so that's why I said you might notice some differences coming up. But we'll still talk to it in a similar kind of way. That doesn't really change, okay? How do we actually talk to it? Well, we talk to it via an endpoint. So it's important to understand kind of how we're going to talk to it or what we're talking to. So in most cases, if it's a web app, like what we're talking about, there'll be a URL. So in our case, it looks a little bit like this: your tenant name, .protect.jamfcloud.com/GraphQL, okay? And there's a few different ways we can interact with that. There's a few different what we call methods for what we want to do. So it might be that we want to query, i.e. read some data. We want to do a mutation to update some data, a mutation to delete some data, a mutation to create some data. Basically, if you want to make any changes in GraphQL, you do a mutation. Queries are just for reading, okay? So, easier way of remembering what your endpoint is, if I'm being honest, if we stick to kind of the restaurant idea, it's your waiter. It's where you order things, okay? So schema, well, what's on offer in our restaurant? What can I get? What can we do with GraphQL? Well, that's where the schema comes in. So every GraphQL API has a schema. It's basically a list of all the different functions or routines or procedures that you can do with that API. And the easy way of remembering that is our menu, right? It's where I can order my burger from. I like burgers. So our endpoint, our waiter, is serving us anything that's available in our schema, our menu, all right? Now we've got something called types. We've got our schema, our menu, that's what's on offer. Our types are our things on that menu. They're what we can request. Okay, so we can turn around to our waiter or our endpoint and say, hey, I want a burger. That's the type we're asking for it to come back. Okay, and there's some other examples of that as well. So we can, for example, from a macOS security portal, get a computer, list some alerts, list analytics. So those are some of the examples of things that are on the schema from the macOS security portal. Okay. The good thing is these are all repeatable actions. So I said about a burger a moment ago. The good thing is when you go to a restaurant and you order the burger, the chefs know exactly what's needed to make the burger and how to make it, right? So if you ordered a burger right now, they could recreate it exactly the same way that they did for someone over here who ordered it 10 minutes earlier. It's a really standard repeatable action, really consistent. Because how I might go and actually remediate an issue by hand might be different from someone else. Fields. Easy way to remember these, they're the ingredients. So our type being our burger, hey, I want a burger. What makes up my burger? Hey, I might have a bun, I might have a patty, there might be salad in there, for example, it might be lettuce. Might even be a sauce, for example, right? Those are our fields. Now, one of the things to kind of bear in mind, and this is where it will differ from Jamf Pro, when you're requesting information back from a GraphQL API, you do need to tell it exactly which fields you would like back. So if I was asking for a burger, I would need to say, hey, I want the burger, but I want the bun and the patty. If I don't say I want salad, I don't get it, okay? That's quite a big difference you might see for those of you who are familiar with the Jamf Pro API. Can we all see kind of the relationship so far? The waiter being our endpoint, it's going to fulfill our requests. Yeah? Cool. Then we've got our schema, our menu, our types being what we can request, and our fields are what make up our actual request in there. Cool. Yeah, if we were to request the computer information, these might be the type of fields we'd want to request back. Okay? Let's look a little bit at that and kind of what a request might look like. Just kind of play it through, just for the sake of clarity, and kind of really reinforce it and see what it looks like. So we're in the front of house, you know, we're in the dining room. We've seen our menu, our schema, and we want to order something. So we've put together our order. I want to order the burger type, and these are my fields. I want the bun, I want the beef patty, salad cheese, and I want some sauce in there, okay? So I get my request, pop it together, and send it off through my endpoint, the waiter, to the back of house, the kitchen, right? And the API there pulls all the bits that I need together for that request, all the fields that I asked for, and turns it into my response. In this case, a nice juicy burger, right? That comes back to me. So we're doing our to and from through the waiter. Now, let's forget the burger for a second and look at it without the burger. So same situation, we've got our schema, our menu, but this time we're going to get a computer. We want to see the host name, the serial number, and the architecture type of that device, right? So we would send that off via our endpoint. The API would look at our request, go, oh, these are the things that you're asking for, let me get that for you. Pop it all back together, and then we get the computer information returned to us via the endpoint. All good? Great. Now, things look a little bit different when you're working with an API than when you're in the console or the GUI, right? So we can see we've got two different URLs here. We're actually going to the same thing, we're trying to get the same information, but they look a bit different. So from the API, we've seen our endpoint URL already. That's what it looks like. But if we were looking at this in the GUI in a browser, for example, and looking at a specific computer, it looks a little bit different. It's actually got the ID of the device I'm trying to access in it, okay? But that's not really a concern. That's not a worry, because when we look at the data that comes out from both, whilst the API data is really text-heavy, almost looks like code, which is actually really good when it comes to scripting and creating these automations we want to, it's not that easy for us to read. That's why we have GUIs, right? But the information is exactly the same. If we start to play this through, you'll see, cool, I want to look at my host name, the operating system version, my compliance insights levels. They're all there in the GUI in a nice format that's easy for me to read. But it's the same information, okay? There's nothing to be scared of there. So how do we address the problem that we had before with the screenshots or the launch agents, etc.? We get the alert data. I said it earlier on. When one of these behaviors is detected, we get an alert in Jamf Protect. That alert data in the GUI, if you look at it, has the file path of our screenshot. That's the screenshot that was taken. That's exactly the context I need. That's what I can target. Now, if I stick in the GUI and kind of look at the raw JSON that could be exported out of Jamf Protect's alert, it's in there too. So I know I can definitely get this out via the API because it's all here. Remember, we said both data is the same. Doesn't matter whether or not you see it in the GUI or the API. We can get to it. Now, before we put it out, I just want to show you something that might help you if you want to start exploring this. So Altair GraphQL client. And there are others. You don't have to use this one. But I've got a couple of screenshots you'll see as an example. But it's basically an application that will allow you to start viewing GraphQL APIs in a GUI environment. So instead of having to script it all to start with, the reason why you might want to look at this is you can start to see, one, the documentation, what the schema is and what you can get out of it, but you can start to pull parts of the code in and then run it in that environment and get the response back and see whether or not you're doing the right thing before you put it in your script, okay? So that might be a useful thing for some of you to look at if you're interested, okay? Sticking with it, I said about the documentation, if I was in Altair and looking for it, you can see when I look at the documentation in there from the macOS Security Portals API, it says, hey, are you trying to do a query or a mutation? Well, I'm trying to do a query, I'm trying to read something. So if I go into query, it goes, these are all the types that you can request. If you're doing a query, these are the types of things you can ask me for. And then the last one, hey, these are the fields that you can get back that make up that type. So it's a really clear, really nice, easy way of going into it and kind of diving down through the hierarchy and going, these are the things that I want. Okay? Like I said, you don't have to use this one. I find it useful. Maybe you will too. So let's put our query together. This is how we're going to try and get the context that we need. So we know our endpoint. That's not changed. It doesn't change in GraphQL. That's something that's probably quite important to note. And then we've actually got a query over here. So we're saying we're doing a query. We want to read. This isn't a mutation. It's a query. We're telling it the type that we want. So we're saying, hey, I want to list alerts. And then lastly, at the bottom here, under our items, we put our fields that we want returned. So no pressure, but does anyone have any idea what that might return right now based on what we've been talking about so far? Everything? Or nothing. So I did say before, but I only said it once, if you don't tell it what field you want back, you don't get it. And we didn't tell it any fields, so it's not going to work. Okay? Really big difference from the Jamf Pro API. When you do this in Jamf Pro, it gives you everything back. Okay? So this is actually quite nice because you can be really specific though. You can turn around and go, I only need that one piece of information, give that to me. That's it, I don't have to worry about all the other bits. So that's a really nice difference with GraphQL. I've done the hard work so you don't have to. I've looked at this many times in the past for people. There's a few fields here that we might want to consider getting back from the alerts. So we might want to look at the likes of a computer name, the event type, and unfortunately, there isn't actually a field that I can see there for the file path, but we know it's in the JSON, right? We saw it in that JSON extract. So if I request that back, I know I can get my file path, okay? Now, the reason why I was interested in those is, unlike before where we just had the list alerts, I'd have got back every single alert in my environment. That's a little bit crazy for what we're trying to do right now. I don't know how many we'd pull down. It's not going to apply to exactly what I'm trying to do. So let's be a bit more specific, right? So when I'm doing my query, I can give it a filter and I can say, look, only give me new alerts. If it's been moved to in progress, someone's working on it, or it's been resolved already, I don't care about it. It's not applicable to what I'm trying to do right now, so I don't need to know about it. What type of event it is? If someone's moved a file or inserted a USB drive, don't want to know. I only want to know if it's a screenshot. Okay? And lastly, well, I only want to know if it's this computer that I'm trying to remediate. I don't need to know about any others. So we can really quickly and easily put these filters in and get back really specific information, just the new alerts for this device for a screenshot event. And now we've actually given it a field. We say, hey, we want the JSON returned back. So we're actually going to get a response this time. Now, what does this look like from a script perspective? Apologies if some of you haven't seen something like this before. I'll try and talk through it a little bit. But what we're doing is we're doing a curl command. So curl is something that's built into bash. Okay? And curl is basically allowing us to do a transfer to or from a URL. So our endpoint that we were talking about before is a URL. So we want to transfer some information to it. So we've got our command. We've then got our URL. So like I said, our endpoint URL, our waiter. Okay? So that's where we're going to send our request off to. And then we already saw this a second ago, but the query we actually want to make against the GraphQL API. Now, if we ran this in a script right now, this is what we're going to get back from that JSON extract. And the good thing is, and we knew this anyway, there's our file path. Job done. Yeah? But because it's in the raw JSON extract, we do have a lot of additional information we really don't need right now. It'd be nice if we had it as a separate field. I'd just love to pull that one file path. But in this case, we weren't able to do that. So how do we get it down to just that file path? Several different ways we can do this, depending on who you ask, if I'm being honest. If you ask one of my colleagues, he might say sed. There are people who say org. There are people who say translate. Lots of different ways of doing it. I'm going to talk about JQ. JQ is I'm getting a thumbs up, I'll take that. JQ is a JSON parser. It's specifically designed for putting JSON information through it and being able to manipulate it to get out what you want. It's purpose-built for this task. And the really good thing is, since macOS 15, It's built in. It never used to be. If you've got older devices in your estate, you can still use this, but you're going to have to install it on them first. Whereas on macOS 15 and later, it's already there for you. So you don't have to start installing anything else to get this to work. You can just call on JQ in your scripts, okay? So what we're actually going to do is we're going to say to JQ, hey, I want you to start going through this structure. You can see there's a bit of a hierarchy there. Things are indented, moving kind of down. Our first dot says that's the top level of our information. I then want to go into data, into list alerts, and into items, and return whatever is inside items, okay? So if we did that, we've stripped out a load of additional information, okay? We're pretty much down to just the JSON. Now we're going to do it a little bit more, and we're going to run a different command. JQ, there's a -r in there. This is a parameter we can add, or an argument we can add, I should say, to JQ, which basically says, give me back the raw information. I don't need to know about things in quotes, things like that. Just give me what's within that, okay? And there's a really weird bit here. I've got square bracket 0. Well, the reason I've got that is because I was calling alerts. I wasn't calling a single alert. I was asking it to return all alerts for this device that are new and a screenshot, so there might be more than one, okay? If I'm remediating, and this is in place already, I probably wouldn't have more than one, but they could be. And so that's what the square brackets are for. Items, when we went into it, is an array. There could be more than one alert in there. So I'd have item 0, my first alert, item 1, the next one in the array, item 2. So I'm just asking it to pull back the most recent one, the top one, okay? And you can see we've actually got rid of the JSON tags at the top. We've lost a little bit more of our structure, okay? We're getting there bit by bit. I'll be honest, there is a more optimal way of doing this. I'm just kind of breaking it down into chunks. Hopefully it's a bit more digestible this way. And then lastly, if we ask it to go into that JSON extract, because that's all that was left was the contents of JSON, and go into match, underneath match, event, and there's a path field in there, okay? Beautiful, we've got our file path. We've now got the context we need to do an effective direct remediation, okay? So I've changed our script a little bit. There's a few things in here, and some of these you can get from developer.jamf.com and some other sources as well, just to help kind of put it together so you don't have to do it from scratch if you're not familiar with it. But the first thing I'm doing here is creating, giving it some authentication client credentials for my API, saying, hey, here's how you're going to actually communicate with it, and I want you to go off and get a token that can be used to talk to the API and authenticate so we can actually get our request through, okay? Don't try and use those credentials, they don't work anymore. The next bit is our curl command that we were looking at. We're actually going to go and do our query and get the information returned back. And then the last bit is a little bit cleaner. It's our JQ query to extract that file path. And it's just off screen now. All we're then doing is saying, hey, go and remove that file path. We're no longer saying remove users $3, desktop, screenshot, whatever, because I know exactly what was created. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and create that, remove just that file path. So our workflow's changed ever so slightly here. We're now running our script, but instead of just removing stuff, we're getting our file path from the API. We're then deleting just that file path, and then we'll delete the smart group so we fall out of it. Our remediation's complete. So what does it look like now? Exactly the same situation. Already got screenshots in here. We'll do the same thing, same action as before. We'll take a screenshot of the doc. We'll let that go through. There's our doc. We'll give it a few seconds. I'll click off just so we know we're not selecting it or anything like that. But in the background, Jamf Protect's kicked in, told Jamf Pro to remediate. Jamf Pro's going off, getting the alert data and the file path and saying, delete just that file path. Much better for our users, right? Voila, exactly what we wanted. Now think about that and all the other things we can do as well, around it as well. We've done the file path. It might be nice that if we're going to expand on this a little bit, maybe we display a dialog to the users. Hey, reminder, you're not supposed to be taking screenshots. You're on Santa's naughty list now. Things like that. But we're using APIs as well. We're trying to automate as much as we can. What other things could we do via the API? We could maybe do a mutation. This is an alert, right? This has got a new status in Jamf Protect. What about if we were changing the status dynamically as we went through the remediation? We've kicked off our remediation. Maybe we change the alert status to in progress. Anyone who goes and looks in the portal now, there's no new one. Someone's already doing something, or an automation is already working on that problem. We do the remediation. At the end of it, we tell the API again, hey, mark it as resolved. We've no longer got, I don't know how many screenshot alerts sat in there marked as new. Keeping it nice and tidy and completing the process. And also kind of think about some of these examples. Now we've got the context and we know how we can do that. Hey, launch agents, launch daemons. We talked about not wanting to get rid of all those. We can be a lot more targeted. We've got the context. There's also some other analytics you might want to consider. There's loads of possibilities you can use for this now. There is, if you think of credential harvesting, there is an analytic, a behavior that we can watch for. Someone has taken the KC password hash, someone's encrypted password, and tried to decrypt it and exported it. If that happens on a device, well, when are we going to get to it? If we put a remediation in, we could actually see exactly which user that was for. We can get some of that information out from the alerts, from that JSON. Maybe we could then either, if we wanted to, we could maybe lock down the device and investigate it. But if we want to be really quick about it and make sure that that's not going to function at all, what about if we actually got who the user was, who the KC password file was for, and change that user's password? Pro can do that for us. That password file that they got just now is now useless, right? So there's loads of different ways we could start to apply this, automate it, make our lives easier, continual effective remediation, and know that it's going to be the same process for everyone. Okay? And I'll be honest, that's pretty much everything I have for you. I think we've got a few minutes left, so I can take some Q&A if there are any. I'll do my best to answer them. I can't promise I'll have all the answers, but if you've got questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, go for it.
You want to reference the BG recon that Protect is doing? Is that a full recon or a targeted recon?
Oh, that's a very good question. So the question, for those of you who didn't hear, was the BG recon that happens in the background via Protect. Is that a full inventory recon or a targeted one? I'll be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to come back to you. I can probably double check in a minute.
If I had to guess, I mean, it would only make sense if it's targeted because I'd imagine there's a lot of these analytics that could be going if they were constantly doing recons.
Full recon, then yeah, it could be quite intensive if there was lots going off. Hopefully your environment's not too bad in the fact that you're getting things you're not expecting. Any other questions? Did I lose anyone partway through that, or did it make sense? No? That's all right. I mean, if there aren't any other questions, that's absolutely fine. If you want to dive into it a little bit more, maybe even set up Altair and Jamf Protect if you've got access to Jamf Protect already. There is a brain date for this tomorrow morning. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if there's any spaces left for it, but if there are and you want to come and have a chat with me, maybe we can look at how you kind of navigate some of the schema and things like that. Feel free. Have a good day.